Tonight, we hunt outsiders. Be more than human. And welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph Carroll. I write under the pen name J.R. Carroll. And today we are back to Dresden. It feels like it's been forever. I think it's been like 3 weeks since the last Dresden review here. And since then we've also had Dresden discussion of Changes in Ghost Story. So if you want to go check that out, if you haven't already, that was great. We had my friend Nathan and Sarah from Sarah Reads was there this time. So go check it out. We had all kinds of fun on that one. And today, it's cold days. Now, I did a a community tab poll, and people voted this as of a few hours ago was rated as the best non-changes book, because I think Changes is universally kind of the book. So just finished ahead of Skin Game, which, if I'm gonna be honest, is probably my favorite. But this is excellent. One of the best fantasy books ever written is Cold Days. I know it is, some people who think Changes isn't the best, this is theirs. So let's roll right into this. Come on, guys. This is spoiler filled, so if for some reason you just stumbled upon this, I would read the book and come back. All right, so we roll into this with Harry waking up from his freaking, death coma, and he can barely remember who he is and everything. But apparently, some lady we don't know yet is feeding him chicken noodle soup, and he's barely able to use his hands, but he's able to get one plate down, and she's like, oh, finally you're able to do this. So apparently he's been waking up and bumbling around for a while. From here, Maeve walks in and tries to suffocate him with a pillow. And you're like, what the hell? But as we know now, Maeve is full of tough love, and she only helps those who help themselves. So this begins a 77-day wake up, eat, and try to get killed, and try not to die. And they, Jim puts us through a montage of different ways, from scorpions to ants, cobras, all kinds of different, her trying to kill him with a shotgun. So very fun kind of montage of recuperation for Dresden. And this is where we figure out Dresden's really super strong, pushing human limits to the max with the winter mantle, giving him some extra oomph there. But we figure out that the girl that's been helping him, her name is Arissa, and she is kind of, owes Maeve something. And, there we figure out that she's kind of, she has some kind of disease or something, and she basically has to be Maeve's BFF and stay in Arctis tour for several months out of the year. And this is kind of what her duty is right now, is to help Dresden kind of navigate winter a little bit. And she shows up, the 78th day, dressed all nice, in a nice evening gown, and Dresden gets a tux brought to him, and he's like, "Oh, well, whose party is this? Oh, well, isn't that cool?" So, they walk in together, and the room is pitch black. He can't see anything, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these goblins and stuff come running up to him, and he thinks, oh shit, I'm about to get attacked, and then they're all like, happy birthday, and Dresden realizes that, it's his birthday, because he's so out of it, he doesn't know, what is up, what is down. And they apparently had carved these giant, like, building size structures of ice are his apartment. It looks like his couch, his books, his rugs, and this is where, Sarissa's kind of guiding him, like, all right, these are people to worry about, and, and this and that. And so he actually runs into the Earl King and Gruff here. And there's a guy that walks up with the Earl King, and Dresden's like kind of describe. When Dresden's describing him, I'm sitting here like, this. I was like, this can't be who he's describing. It can't be. And then he talks about how he laughs and his belly jiggles like a bowl full of jelly, and I'm like, oh my god. And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my god, are you freaking kidding me, Santa Claus? And he's like, call me Kringle, and Sarissa's making fun of Dresden because Dresden's kind of like, oh my god. She's like, you're such a fanboy, and I'm as I'm going through this, I'm feeling the same way. I'm like, oh my god, Jim, you put Santa Claus in this thing, but then of course things can't stay nice and funny and fun forever, because we run into the Red Cap, and he tries to take Sarissa, and there's a rule that Sarissa was saying, is like, you can't spill blood on Mab's, in Mab's hall or whatever. And then Harry ends up dueling this Red Cap guy with a tie, and he's like, one of us is getting choked out or whatever. But then one of the guys who came with the Red Cap ends up smacking Sarissa, and her blood falls to the floor. And then Mab tells Harry, basically, go ahead now you have to go ahead to do whatever to defend my honor, basically. And he freezes the dude and then blows him apart, and everyone's like, oh shit. And so Harry's like looking around, like, does anybody else, it's like, he lays down the law, like, nobody's touching Immortal here, and does anybody want to say anything? And this noble guy steps out, and he's like, do you think you can? And he's just like, Infriga Fazare! Freezes him instantly and explodes him at the same time. And now everyone's like, oh shit. So Harry's kind of like, you go into prison, you gotta lay the law down, right? And I mean, I just thought that sticks in my memory so hard. Like, anytime someone says Cold Days, that's one of the very first things that pops into my mind, is Harry just starting off with a bang, literally. And then Harry also has a great quote here when he was, I forget what character he was talking to, but he's basically like intimidating him. He was like, he's like, I'm pretty good with fire. He goes, build a man a fire and you'll keep him warm for a day, but set a man afire and he's warm for the rest of his life. And I was like, man, that is a freaking, sweet quote. But, Harry, we find out that Mab tells Harry, I need you to kill my daughter, kill Maeve. And Harry's like, oh shit, what the hell's going on here? And so, apparently in the wardrobe, there, Mab has given Harry a way back to Chicago, and apparently it's the only way out of Fairy right now. So she must be investing a lot of power into that. And Harry gets out, and he's driving what he calls the Munster Mobile, which is like an old hearse, because they know he needs a really old vehicle to drive around so he doesn't screw everything up. And as he's he goes. First thing he does is he goes and gets Bob. Um, you know, yeah, and Bob's like, oh, he's sitting there like, I want to say he was watching porn or something like that on the computer. Very Bob. And then he ends up fighting Georgia accidentally, but kind of fills her in just a minimal amount of what's going on, and then takes off and gets attacked. Like someone throws a black bag in front of the monster mobile, and it explodes, and then Harry gets attacked by tiny fairies. And of course, Bob thinks that's the most hilarious thing ever. He's like sounds like he's choking. He's like, tiny fairies. And Harry only makes it out because Molly does her, her illusion spell, shows up with her illusion spell of cats. And now we know that little fairies hate domestic cats because they can actually catch the fairies. So then Molly informs Harry that she's been out to the island several times and it's about to explode. And so here is, there's always multiple things going on in Dresden books, right? That's what I've always said to you guys. It's so now we got the island is gonna explode. Maeve's gotta die. It's like, oh snap! Like, okay, what are we doing? So Harry's like, well, I gotta get back out to the island. So they're gonna go take the water beetle, and Thomas ends up being on the water beetle and like puts a gun to the back of Harry's head, and they kind of had this thing like, well, you can't possibly be Harry because Harry would have told me, he would have came back, and it's kind of like, playing the blame game, but then, eventually they bro hug it out, and a little maybe a little bit of dust got in the eyes, and they were eye watering, but that's one of my favorite scenes because I just love that kind of friendship, brotherly love stuff. I'm a sap for that. What can I say? But we figure out, Harry starts kind of piecing things together and talking with the Summer Lady, and the Summer Lady and Maeve tell Harry that Mab has been infected by some kind of contagion, the same thing that the Leonshi had. And so Harry's like, oh, so now you guys want me to kill Mab? And Bob has told Harry, because we finally figure out why Bob is wanted by Mab, because he knows how to kill immortals. And one way to kill an immortal is on Halloween. You can kill them and they die. Because normally if you kill an immortal, like Bob says, you kill an immortal, they just come back eventually. Their body may dissolve or whatever, but they'll reform in a couple of days or a month or whatever, or maybe even a couple of years, but they'll be back. But you can kill them dead on Halloween. And so, Harry's trying to figure out, like, all right, what the, who's telling the truth, who's telling the lie. And so Harry goes and tries to figure out when he talks to Titania. And, she's basically like, I'm not going to help you. She kind of gives him a little bit of, okay, well, how do you think Mab's acting? Is she acting within her mindset? But that's all she'll give Harry. So Harry goes to his grave, jumps in the freaking, into his thing, and summons Mother Winter. And I'm sitting here like, that's not going to be a good idea. I mean, we know that powerful beings don't like to be summoned anyway. And he thinks it didn't work at first, but then all of a sudden, like, a freaking hand comes up through the ice in the bottom of his thing and rips him down into it. And, Mother Summer, I guess she looks like this giant, like, just like a giant skeletal frame with a giant hatchet. And she's holding him down with just her will. And she's about to chop him up. And then Harry kind of gets it in his mind. He's like, my will, your power, it dwarfs me. I'm an ant compared to you when it comes to strength. He goes, but my will cannot be contained. And he breaks free of her will, and then all of a sudden he's in the freaking cottage. And, she's like, and it was kind of like, it was almost kind of like a test. It's like, well, I'll kill you if you don't, pass the test. But, he gets through, and then we realize that he kind of hurt her because she, as we know, she lost her walking stick, and she can't really get around very good. So it actually hurt her to be summoned. And so, but, she hem-hauls and like, hey, we need to tell him. She's talking with Mother Summer. He's like, we need to tell him what's going on. And so Mother Summer takes him for a walk. And he ends up at the outer gates, at the edge of Fairy. And then we realize, like, what's been going on in the background here. Like, because they've always said, like, that they probably have even amount of, because everything has to be balanced, right? Well, we thought they'd have an even amount of troops, but it turns out that, Maeve has like 10 times the amount of troops because she's battling outsiders at the outer gates. And so, Maeve's job is to fight the outsiders, and Titania's job is to keep Maeve from, going off the deep end in our reality. And so, Harry's kind of going through all this, and then he runs into the GateKeeper. And he's like, I thought that, we all just thought that title, I thought the title meant something, but Harry's like, I just thought it was just a random, title that didn't really mean anything. But, he gives Harry a little bit of advice, maybe not the advice that Harry was wanting, but he basically says, I'll put in a good word for you and reinstate all your paperwork. And Harry's like, paperwork, that's what you're going to help me with. Thanks, But then from there, Harry, actually gets attacked again by the tiny fairies, and their leader, they call him Captain Hook, because they have like hooks, like fishing hooks all over their black armor. But they end up capturing this fairy, and it turns out that it's a female, and her name's Lacuna. And of course, Toot Toot falls in love with her, even though she's been trying to kill him this whole book. But he's trying to offer, and it's one of the cutest things. Like, he's trying to offer her like candies and stuff, and she like smacks him. And that just makes him wonder even more. She's like, I eat celery, so she's, I don't know if she's a vegan or something. But that is one of the funniest things, that Toot Toot falls in love with Lacuna. It was bound to happen. I mean, we all know how Toot Toot is. But from there, Harry starts, this is where, the time in the book where Harry starts putting it all together, right? And gets the troops together, and they're like, all right, we're headed out to the island. They lay out a map, and they send the White Court to go attack one location. They send the Valhalla Vikings off to another location, and then they go, to the island. And before they make it to the island, the Wild Hunt appears, and and Harry's like freaking out, and Harry and Murphy are on her motorcycle getting chased by the Wild Hunt. One of the best scenes in Dresden ever. And who's with the Wild Hunt? We know the Earl King, but also Kringle is with the Wild Hunt. And Harry ends up shooting the Earl King and like glancing off the side of his face, and kind of takes him out of the fight, and then ends up like, beating Kringle with his repeating rifle, and takes over the Wild Hunt. But the Earl King and Kringle come back, and they're both like, basically like, oh, good job, you bested us, so you can take the Wild Hunt. And one of the all-time best quotes is like, what are we gonna do now, Dresden? And he's like, looks out at the Wild Hunt, and he's basically like, tonight we hunt outsiders. And I mean, it's one of the best scenes ever where they start attacking because there's 3 barges that have what Harry assumes that there's like a ritual circle built in to attack the island. The island is pulsing most of the things with like this like force field that looks like a green force field that's just like killing anything that tries to hit it. But the Wild Hunt starts attacking, and then Sharkface shows up, and it is a freaking masterclass in large scale battle by Jim Butcher, just beautiful. And then of course Harry gets up to the top of the island, and who is there but Maeve and Lily. And on our way there, of course, Harry figured out that Maeve is the one that has been infected with what we now know is called Nemesis. And so we learn that she can lie, and that's how she has gotten Lily to follow her, because Lily assumes she can't lie. And they're trying to, and together, both of the ladies are trying to take down Demon Reach, who's on the top of the hill. And Harry's kind of saying like, well, Demon Reach is so powerful that these, it's almost like, are you going to use a sledgehammer to take out a mouse? So he's just kind of standing there taking their blows, and they're like chipping off tiny pieces of him. And Harry ends up fighting Fix and knocking Fix out, but not killing him. And then we find out that Lily is kind of, her emotions are raging, and she almost tries to kill Harry because she thinks that Harry killed Fix, when really it was Maeve that was putting a kind of a glamour, so it looked like Harry was saying something else other than what he was saying. He was trying to tell her, stop, I didn't kill him. But she attacks Harry. Fix wakes back up and protects Harry. And then, but Fix is like, hey, there's nothing can be done. They start, but they kind of team up and they start fighting the other people outside. And Harry kind of lets Winter take over to try and, take down Maeve. But he's just not able to. And Harry thinks quickly, and he ends up figuring that they have a circle. They had made a circle on top of the island. So he's like, well, I can summon someone here. And of course, he summons Maeve. And she kind of shuts everything down. And we figure out that Sarissa is actually Maeve's sister. And Maeve is like, we know she's already mentally unstable. But then she's also got Nemesis inside of her. And she's like talking shit to Maeve, like, well, you were always trying to groom her and you liked her better than me. And she ends up shooting Lily in the side of in the head and killing, and her the essence of the Summer Lady goes into Sarissa, and then Maeve's like, well, now you can't kill me, because there's nowhere for the Winter Lady to go. And what Maeve does is ends up breaking the chains of Murphy and throwing a gun over to her. And Murphy grabs the gun and kills Maeve. And so now Harry had put it together just before Murphy shot her, that who's been getting groomed by by the Leonci, Molly, and the Winter Lady's essence goes into Molly, and then we're all sitting here like, what just happened? Just everything just blew up all at once, and there was a whole big scene there, and then Harry is at the end of the book is just talking with Murphy, and they're kind of putting their feelings out there, and Murphy's like, you're gonna live forever, I'm gonna die here relatively soon, soon compared to you, we can't be together. And Harry's kind of telling her, like, let's hold out hope, we could do this, but if the time is right, And that's kind of where we're at here at the end of Cold Days. To me, maybe the second, it might be, I would say it's the third book on my list of all Dresden books, which makes it one of the best ever written. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subscribed by now, come on, let follow me. We're almost there. We're almost at the end. Let me know, is this your favorite? What is your favorite? How did you feel once you finished Cold Days? And remember, be more than human.